There is a very good chance the commercial vehicle you traveled in today has not been truly certified as roadworthy, even though it may have a sticker which says so.
Commercial vehicles are not required to go on the machines because commercial drivers are organized and they can demonstrate against governments. Governments are afraid.
Joy News visited a transport terminal here in Accra and got confirmation from leadership of the drivers' union.
It's not a commercial driver, even the private cars, the company cars, they don't even take it there. They be in their car. So it's not like it's just a commercial driver.
Governor New Patriotic Party challenges former President Mahama to publicly confirm or deny his involvement in the Airbus bribery scandal.
On the face of the evidence presented, government official one appears to be no other than former President John Dramani Mahama, now presidential candidate of the NDC for the 2020 presidential and general elections.
Though the former president is yet to comment publicly, the opposition NDC has rubbished the claims. In another development, the General Secretary of the NDC is warning there could be a constitutional crisis if the Electoral Commission goes ahead with plans to compile a new voters register, considering the limited time available.
If the elections cannot happen on that date, then you have already run the country into a constitutional crisis.
I'm Israel. Joy News Prime comes to you live from the Joy News studio at Kokomimli here in Accra with digital address GA 0992539. Stay tuned in. Now, the governing MPP is challenging former President John Mahama to publicly confirm or deny his involvement in the Airbus bribery scandal. This was after the company admitted in court documents cited by Joy News they paid bribes to or failed to prevent corruption in transactions in 5 countries, including Ghana. The company, in the deferred prosecution agreement reached with prosecutors in 3 countries, didn't specifically name any officials who might have been bribed or corrupted during Ghana's negotiations, but refers to personalities involved as government official 1, a high-ranking elected public figure. According to Airbus, the payments happened between 2009 and 2015 during the regime of late President Tata Mills and former President John Mahama. The National Democratic Congress has, however, through former Attorney General and Minister of Justice Marietta Buapiopong, already come out to deny the bribery allegations. A statement signed by the former AG described the reports as false, misleading, and not a reflection of the approved judgment. General Secretary of the Opposition NDC, Johnson Yesiedun Ketia, has also dismissed the claim, suggesting the allegations are employed by government to divert attention from the voter register debacle.
You know my view about this. Whenever MPP has its back on the wall, they just want to divert the attention of the nation, and that is what they are doing. Is their attempt to divert attention of the nation from this electoral register and the other burning issues. So it is much ado about nothing.
How do you draw this conclusion when the case was not even tried? This was not a Ghanaian court. This is a UK court. How do they have control over that?
Can I finish? I'm not sure the UK court called anybody from Ghana to testify or invited anybody from Ghana to do anything. So the Attorney General, as at that time, has issued a statement that what they are putting out there in the newspapers is false, and that she is preparing to come and react to it. So that gave me the confidence that, well, these people are at their diversionary best. So they just want something. You know, if your cow gets lost, and you may be so desperate that in looking for that cow, you'll be looking into a hen coop to see whether a cow is hiding in the hen coop. That's what they are doing. They are very desperate. But it brings some very interesting development. I'm told that the president has ordered special prosecutor to go and investigate something.
That's actually a statement that was issued from the presidency.
Okay, thank you very much. I thought the president said that public institutions are not under his control and that they are to do their work. So the president didn't see or hear about excavators that have been vanished. or he didn't hear about the tricycle, containers load of tricycles that have vanished in this country.
What's your points? Were you expecting that he would make reference?
If he is the one who orders people to investigate, there are sufficient evidence about wrongdoing now happening in Ghana. I thought he was quiet because when you tell him, he says, I'm not the person who orders investigation.
The governing NPP however insists former President Mahama has questions to answer as he was at the helm of affairs in the period under review. Director of Communications, Yao Wabenga Samwa, addressed a news conference Monday afternoon.
Court documents and proceedings on the internet say a high-ranking elected Ghanaian government official was allegedly involved in acts of bribery intended to improperly influence his conduct of government business. That official is further referred to as Government Official 1 in the court documents. This network used a high-ranking elected government official known as Government Official 1 to conduct its business. On the face of the evidence presented, Government Official 1 appears to be no other than former President John Dramani Mahama, now presidential candidate of the NDC for the 2020 presidential and general elections. The New Patriotic Party would have been content with the swift response of the government in referring the matter to the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Indeed, we would have, and we commend His Excellency the President for his swift decision to refer the matter to the Office of the Special Prosecutor. But notwithstanding the referral to the OSP, it is important to note that the former Attorney General's intervention on behalf of candidate Mahama is very, very weak and unable to directly respond to the hard facts as put out by the United Kingdom Serious Fraud Office. It is therefore necessary, and we are calling the former president out, that former president, now candidate John Dramani Mahama, responds directly to the issue himself. Question: is he Government Official 1? Question: is he the high elected Ghana government official, also known as Government Official 1? He should tell the whole nation what he knows about Government Official 1 and the processes leading to the purchase of the aircraft from Airbus SE, because he was president at the time.
The Boabingasam also wants Special Prosecutor Martin Amidu to allow his office to carry out the investigation, since he might have played a role in the purchase of the aircraft as he was then the Attorney General.
I think that where he is now, he is in a position to use legal authority in his office to push this process forward. If he personally feels conflicted, I think his office is equipped, because he has a deputy. He has a deputy. That is a deputy, what do you call it? Special prosecutor, who can carry these matters forward. But I will not stand here and purport to determine these matters for Mr. Amidu.
But you admit he was an Attorney General.
Oh, yes. But he was the one who was behind the formation of the committee on the Embraer. Perhaps he would have formed another committee on this one. Or perhaps this one didn't blow up, so we don't know. But I think Martin is an experienced public official, and once the matter has been referred to his office, the protocols of the law setting up the office and the protocols of public life, codes of conduct and otherwise, because all these matters of conflict of interest are governed by law. They are governed by law. Conflict of interest under Article 284 tends to look at whether you are abusing your office for personal gain. If you are conflicted because you are doing official work, then I will find it difficult how we explain conflict.
That would be fair for him to step aside and let the office work.
I am not in a position to determine his procedures for him. You know, Martin is famous for responding to issues, so he will respond to these matters himself, I'm sure.
Now, the presidency, in a statement, has already asked the special prosecutor to investigate the claims. And the statement signed by Eugene Ahin reads, the attention of the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has been drawn to a 31st January 2020 judgment of the Crown Court at Southwark in the United Kingdom between the director of the Serious Fraud Office and Airbus SE, in which the European multinational Aerospace Corporation has been fined $3.9 billion for the payment of bribes to secure deals in 5 countries, including Ghana. Now, the rest of the statement is already out there in the public. It talks about the facts of the case, but the final conclusion of it is where the president directs the Office of the Special Prosecutor to wade into it. The President Akufo-Addo has taken notice of the judgment and its implications and has referred it to the Office of Special Prosecutor to collaborate with his UK counterparts to conduct a prompt inquiry to determine the complicity or otherwise of any Ghanaian government official, past or present, involved in the said scandal, and to take the necessary legal action against any such official as required by Ghanaian law. And it's signed by Eugene Ahin, who's the Director of Communications at the Presidency. Now, the opposition, NDC, is warning of a constitutional crisis if the Electoral Commission goes ahead with its plan to compile a new voters register. NDC General Secretary Johnson Ketia explains this is because the EC has stated that the earliest it can complete the compilation is November 8, which is just a month before the election. Yava says without a certified register, all other processes for filing of nomination by candidates cannot happen. Mr. Zedun Ketia was speaking with Joy News after addressing a forum by the Inter-Party Coalition Against the New Voters Register.
The election date is fixed by the Constitution. So what will happen is that if the elections cannot happen on that date, then you have already run the country into a constitutional crisis, because the term of the president is fixed. And beyond that January 7th, there's nothing anybody can do. The president cannot continue to be a president. And you don't have a process that has selected a new president. Then you have a serious challenge. So that one is not an area that anybody should be, aspiring to move toward.
The group says it will hold the Accra version of its series of protests on Tuesday as planned. Convener Bernard Mona says they will be presenting petitions to the Electoral Commission and President Akufo-Addo, a move he says is significant for their campaign.
By 6 a.m. we all converge at the Kawokudi Park, just by Gold House, and then we'll take on from there. We'll walk through the principal streets all the way to the Liberation Circle, and then around the Flagstaff House we will pause, and then we'll deliver a petition to the President, and then from there we'll continue all the way to the Liberation Circle and then towards the Electoral Commission. After we have submitted our petition, we will then march to the Ifua Sutherland Park, where we shall then be addressing the crowd.
How remarkable will that be, petitioning the Electoral Commission directly tomorrow, as well as the President directly? How symbolic will that be, well, as far as this fight is?
We still want to have an engagement with the President to put this kind of presentation that we have done here for Mr. President to come to the reality. I'm sure that the President himself is being followed by his peers across the continent and even at the UN to ensure that he's able to deliver a credible and acceptable elections. By all intents and purposes, it's obvious that the Electoral Commission and the timetable they are giving, they cannot deliver that. Indeed, they want to throw away valuable information, data, and equipment that can be used for many other purposes.
We now move to the deadly coronavirus. We know that Ghana has been listed as one of the high-risk countries. The disease has so far claimed 361 lives since the outbreak, with over 17,238 cases recorded across China and 150 cases reported in 24 countries. Over 100 persons have been treated and discharged. The US, Israel, Philippines, and other countries have already activated travel restrictions, contrary to WHO's advice to member countries. Philippines has become the first country outside China to confirm a death from the infection. Here in Ghana, the Medical Association is demanding effective communication and strengthening of the country's healthcare system, raising questions about our preparedness should we record a case of the novel coronavirus. A statement signed by the President, Dr. Frank Ankobia, and General Secretary, Dr. Justice Yang Sing of the Ghana Medical Association, pointed to logistical and protocol concerns. It reads, the Ghana Medical Association is concerned with a recent outbreak of the novel coronavirus in some countries, which has been declared a public health emergency of international concern by the World Health Organization. The human interactions between countries make the possibility of an outbreak of the coronavirus in Ghana very real. This therefore requires that as a country, we must be prepared in terms of logistics, protocols, and trained personnel to deal with a possible case. The Ministry of Health should strengthen the surveillance system at the point of entry into Ghana as well as within the country. We call for adherence to the various international and local surveillance guidelines and protocols in all health facilities, port of entry, as well as improved public education on the signs and symptoms of coronavirus infection at the community level. There is an urgent need for the reactivation of a well-coordinated rapid response team like the one set up during the Ebola pandemic in 2014-2015. And we urge doctors and other healthcare workers who are trained as part of that response team to immediately regroup and get involved actively as we strengthen our preparedness towards any possible case of coronavirus infection in Ghana. Now, infectious disease specialist and assistant professor of medicine at the Nebraska Medical Center in the United States, Dr. Beth Ayi, is asking government to follow actions taken by the United States government and introduce travel restrictions for persons coming from China into Ghana. She spoke on Joy FM's Ultimate Health show on Sunday.
Bangladesh, Saudi Arabia have taken similar actions, and I think it would be very, very useful if Ghana took a similar action, considering that it is taking people who are coming from China to enter a country to cause it to spread. So U.S., for example, has had its first human-to-human transmission in a couple from Illinois. So,
how effective are these travel bans? Do they not fuel anxiety and panic, or in this circumstance, this is an appropriate response?
I think this is a very, very appropriate response, because if the patients were coming from elsewhere, then you would say, oh, it's not really a big deal. But since almost every patient who has had a diagnosis in a foreign country came from China, it is extremely important that the travel ban be imposed if the country has the willpower.
Meanwhile, it should be possible for the Nguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research to test for suspected coronavirus cases in Ghana from next week, after it announced it has taken delivery of test kits for that purpose. You're watching Joy News Prime. We're taking a break, but still ahead in the bulletin, in that very important story, there's a very good chance that the commercial vehicle you traveled in today has not been truly certified as roadworthy, even though it may have a sticker which says so.
We speak, commercial vehicles are not required to go on the machines because commercial drivers are organized and they can demonstrate against governments, and governments are afraid.
Joy News visited the transport terminal here in Accra and got confirmation from leadership of the Drivers Union. We'll be back with that story. Do stay tuned. Now, on to a story which I find extremely disturbing. I don't know about you, but Joy News is learning a considerable number of commercial vehicles on the country's roads never get tested to be certified as roadworthy. The first Deputy Speaker of Parliament says governments are afraid to take on organized driver unions because of the power they wield. Jose Usu, who was the former head of the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority, says a policy that required that all commercial vehicles get tested was scrapped due to agitation by drivers and the fear of government losing votes. He says that policy would have made a significant contribution to reducing the deaths on the country's roads. He was speaking to Joy News on its Arrive Alive campaign.
Consistently ensuring that drivers are disciplined. Discipline in the acquisition of their driver's license, discipline in the maintenance of their vehicles, and discipline on the road. Because I used to argue that some of the things I see drivers do on the road, no licensed testing officer would pass such a person if he did the same thing during the driving test. We brought in, particularly the vehicle testing system, equipment to ensure that where human failings were compromising safety, machines would take care of them. But are we ensuring that all vehicles do it? As we speak, commercial vehicles are not required to go on the machines because commercial drivers are organized and they can demonstrate against governments, and governments are afraid. But otherwise, safety of you, the driver, and your passengers should be paramount. The rule, every driver knows that you cannot overtake at a place where you cannot see clearly up to 50 meters or more. But they do it all the time. What people do on the road, if we had money, we employ for every 110 kilometers, they have 2-3 policemen there, and then you make sure that we have cameras. If you breach any of the road use rules, you are punished. But we don't have that kind of money. There's competition between building more schools, classroom blocks, employing more teachers and nurses and hospitals, and employing more policemen to man the roads. We should also take responsibility as individual drivers. Congratulate you for starting that project. I'll support you with every information I have. But please, let's sustain and put the pressure on the drivers and the unions to accept voluntarily to have their vehicles tested.
Right, so I couldn't believe this when I heard it. So Latifa Driss, he went to one of the transport terminals to find out if indeed it is true. And Latif has joined me in the studio. Hello, Latif. So this story, I found it unbelievable that commercial drivers don't get their vehicles tested. So essentially, they just sit in their terminals or wherever they are, and then somebody just brings them a sticker. What did you find out?
So on all scores, the clip we just heard from the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Jose Wusu, is accurate and it's true. That is, at least, I've spoken to 2 of the union leaders at 2 separate stations here in Accra, and they've confirmed that is the case. And even though some steps have been taken to correct the wrong, the situation still persists. And one of them gave an instance that, assuming his vehicle is in Kumasi in the Ashanti region, and he has to do the renewal here in Accra, there is no way he is able to move the vehicle all the way from Kumasi to Accra for the renewal. So what they do is that he will sit in Accra, place some calls, because they've been doing it over a period of time and have contacts at the DVLA or the garages. He only has to place a call and say, my roadworthy has expired. So what I want you is for you to just renew it for me. And that is done so that he wouldn't be, pressured on the road by the police and the MTTD who will be on the road to inspect these documents as they travel along.
And you have this on record?
So we can listen to 2 of them who spoke with us and says the situation is not only to do with commercial drivers. They say even some private and corporate organizations also do not take their vehicles to the DVLA. They also sit in the offices, place calls for their vehicles to be renewed.
It's not a commercial driver, even the private cars, the company cars, they don't even take it there. They be in their car. So it's not like it's just a commercial driver. Even most of the do you know something? The circumstance whereby the driver may not go there with the vehicle for the registration. Maybe either the car is at a workshop, and since it's at a workshop, it's, we don't get them notification because they don't have any cross that if your bus is at a workshop, they will stop it for you not to continue with the renewal. So most of the time, if it's at a workshop, maybe they'll finish maybe around the weekend and you have a job, you have to go and do the renewal. So that for me to be able to because DVLA don't come on Saturdays. This road royalty that we've been paying for years, how road very wealthy at all? Let's us ask ourselves, the role that we've been applying, we've been using, and we've been paying every 6 months, are they wealthy at all? I know the private cars is a year, and the commercial vehicles are 6 months. The rules that we are applying, are they wealthy? Let's ask ourselves, even the minimum that we've been paying, are they putting it to the right context? Vice versa, if the roads are not good, and I'm coming there for my road royalty, there'll be a mistake. You have a fault or something you detect something to tell me.
Because of the road.
Something is causing that damage.
It is very difficult. Sometimes they tell you to go and fix it. When you are able to fix half of whatever they want, I don't want to talk much. I don't want to, talk against somebody. But to be honest with you, some of the vehicles that they even issue with this road stickers or roadworthy, we see that even vehicle is not roadworthy. Very sure. That's why I said we have our 65% correct, and then that 35% remaining are people sometimes you do consider.
Why do you consider a vehicle that could potentially kill passengers?
No, some of the vehicles they don't kill passengers. There are considerations that they do consider, like but for brakes that will kill people, they have for that one, they will not issue with the stickers. There is no way you get that. And then these headlights and traffic gators that will cause problem. But sometimes you go inside some of the vehicles, that their seats are not.
All right, so you may want that to sink in a bit, that you are likely to be driving or riding a vehicle that is not truly certified as roadworthy, which means that its brake could fail, its parts could malfunction, and it could cause an accident. So you may, but how are you supposed to find out if a vehicle is roadworthy or not, if it has a sticker? And that is why this is truly disturbing, extremely disturbing. And we all need to put pressure on whoever, so this cannot be allowed to happen. You're watching Joy News Prime Button.
Business. After a long corruption battle, Europe's largest aerospace multinational, Airbus, has been fined $4 billion in penalty after admitting it had paid huge bribes on an endemic basis to land contracts in 20 countries. Among those countries is our very own Ghana. This development has raised questions about the role of multinational companies and their dealings in Africa. But the question is this a slap on Ghana's campaign against graft corruption, or perhaps the tentacles of global corporations have spread wide and far as they seek to drive profit? Joining me in the studios is the Executive Director of Anti-Corruption and Civil Advocacy Group, ASEPA Ghana, and he's in the person of Mensa Thompson. Thanks so much for your time. This is a very hot issue in Ghana now, and beyond the politics, one would want to know, this is a normal practice in business, even though it is illegal. A lot of multinationals want to permeate their ways through countries to be able to make profit or have deals with them. Before we go into whether this practice is the best or not, should we be demanding more from Airbus, or we should be demanding more from our country?
Yes, thank you very much. A very good evening to your choice viewers. I think it's two ways. We need to demand more from Airbus. We need to demand more from our country. If you look at the scope of this whole issue since it's broke, the principal thing has been Airbus deciding to go into this settlement agreement to ensure that a lot of their dealings do not, get investigated into. And so they had to settle for an arrangement like this.
That was a smart move,
yes,
though.
That was a smart move. And for a company like Airbus, this whole settlement will bring to rest, or will take away all the hassle of illegal battles upon battles that would have eventually driven the company down. And so they had to save themselves. Unfortunately, in saving themselves, they have plunged a lot of countries into a number of controversies. And example, one of those countries, our own country, Ghana,
and 19 others.
Yes, and several others into some controversies of a sort, as to whether it is worth it that as a country we have to go through all this just because Airbus wants to close, a chapter on their illegal dealings in these countries is also another thing. Allegations have been made. in every story there are two sides. We cannot just swallow what Airbus have said, just hook, line and sinker and run with it and start making noise. What we have to do is demand more answers from Airbus.
But yeah, demand more answers from Airbus, but you agree with me that the president has taken that bold step to investigate the issue. But one will want to ask, in this document that we have seen and the settlement that has been reached, we don't know whether there's been any loss to the state as part of this deal, as far as this deal is concerned, whether in the process of giving the bribe to the middleman or whether it got to the person in question, we don't even know yet. And so we don't know whether as a nation we've lost some amount of money. So the process of investigations, if it goes beyond what perhaps we don't know whether we've lost or not, is it worth it that we push in so much money to investigate this case when we don't know whether any money has been lost to the state yet?
Yes, I mean, as at now, there's no evidence that Ghana has lost a dime in this whole arrangement. There's no evidence. If you read the full report, what the report talks about is the dealings of Airbus, you know, bribing some middlemen to get a contract in our country. The report has not gone further to say whether, I mean, those contracts, I mean, they were value for money, or perhaps the cost of those contracts were inflated, which could be a basis for us to say that we've lost some money. We don't have that information yet, and so we can only limit that arrangement into this supposed 5 million euros, which Airbus admitted to have paid to these middlemen. Now, we want to investigate this matter. I want to get to the bottom of the matter. And I have said that any investigation into this matter should be towards, or the objective of any investigation is to strengthen our system.
Right. To
ensure that at least multinational companies with huge, you know, financial muscles do not get our systems compromised, or do not come into our country and do anything that they want and get away with it. At least we should have systems in place to be able to ensure that at least when they bid for contracts, they get the contract based on merits, not because they paid money to people.
But you mentioned that we should demand more from Airbus. Specifically, what should we be demanding when we want to investigate to see whether more money has been lost to the state or we lost any money at all? But again, we have the National Anti-Corruption Plan. Is that action plan, is that strong enough to be able to check these things when multinationals like Airbus are dealing with us?
Yes, our National Anti-Corruption Action Plan, which was promulgated in 2015, is a very viable document, and I'll bring you a copy so that you can go through. It's a very viable document. If you go through the document, I mean, you could see that the promulgation of that document was one of the reasons why we're doing better in our CPI rankings. Now, I don't think that subsequently we've been able to follow through that document, you know, much as we should. And I think that if we adhere to strict enforcement of our National Anti-Corruption Action Plan, we make the necessary investment into our offices of accountability to ensure that some of these things are checked and some of these transactions are regulated.
Quickly, I'm sorry we don't have time, but quickly before we go, I mean, what's the global best practices and standard when it comes to multinationals dealing with us and dealing with companies or even countries in the first place?
Well, in terms of contract, I think the basic principle is value for money and transparency and going through the public procurement process of the country. And once that is done, that is the standard. Now, in this particular instance, which we've made a lot of fuss about, which I think that those noise that we've made today are not justified. And that is because, one, if a multinational company has admitted that it paid bribes to a middleman, which they themselves, you know, recruited to help get a contract.
We should be demanding more from them.
Yes, so they must be providing us with more names, more answers on why.
I hope, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we don't have time, but I hope we get all these answers and the questions we are asking. But that's how we end the first part of business. My name is Sandra Esinamap, and when I come back, I do have a lot of more business news for you.
Now, private construction firm Engineers and Planners has two options. Either it returns to site to complete ongoing works or risk termination. The firm, together with others, were awarded a contract to construct the 137 kilometers Tamale-Salaga-Makango stretch 8 years ago. Work, as I was told, due to no payment of some work for work done, and in some instances, the contractor's refusal to move to site. President Akufo-Addo, who is on a 2-day tour of the Savannah region, spent this afternoon inspecting progress of work at the Kpembu Ura Palace at Salaga South. Roads Minister Kwesi Mwakata warned the ministry may be forced to terminate part of the contract awarded engineers and planners if they fail to resume work.
From kilometer 80 to kilometer 137, which ends at Makango, was awarded to Michels Engineers and Planners Limited at a total cost of almost 141 million Ghana cedis. This road has been abandoned and is not being worked on, and we cannot allow this to continue. So this is a very important road, not only to the people of the Savannah region, but to the country. Government, under the leadership of His Excellency, the President, has therefore decided to tackle this stretch of road head-on. Accordingly, I have put in place measures, and Friday afternoon we are arranging to meet the management of Michels Engineers and Planners Limited to hold a full discussion on this road with them, and whatever their problems are, they should come and unveil them to us, and we would then reach an agreement with them to return to the road, to come back to site to work on this stretch of the road. And because we want to see the completion of this road, the entire 137 kilometers of Tamale-Salaga-Makango road before the end of the year. If we are unable to reach an agreement with management of Michels Engineers and Planners on Friday, I will take steps, and my ministry will take immediate steps to terminate this contract.
President Akufo-Addo said government in this year of roads promises to fix some of the country's roads described as poor.
The road system in our country has been poor. And that is why we have decided that we're devoting this year to the year of the roads, so that the development of the roads will not be in the green book. It will not be in the statement by President, but people will see. I assure you that the Tamale-Makango roads, the Presidency road, these roads are going to be completed.
77 hectares of the Laura forest in the Laura municipality of the Upper West region have been completely destroyed by fire. 4,900 teak and eucalyptus seedlings planted under the government afforestation program have also burned to ashes. Senior forestry resource guard told Joy News he suspects the inferno may have been the work of an arsonist and called for investigations to apprehend the suspect. Rafiq Salam reports from Laura.
Dark clouds of smoke smoothed communities that lies along the Laura-Nondam Highway as the Laura forest burned at a rate not seen in years. Firefighters look on helpless. 177 hectares of the Laura forest has been consumed by the inferno. There are signs, though the situation is worse than it appears. This is because the burning of the forest isn't the biggest problem. Burning of teak and eucalyptus seedling is. 4,900 teak and eucalyptus seedlings meant for the government afforestation program were completely razed down by the fire. John Dari, an indigene of Laura, is furious to the marrow, blamed the act on the work of a wicked hand.
Since 2017, the Forestry Commission and then the government of Ghana has spent money, a whole lot of money into this institution. But look at just one day, something like this have just come to an end just one day. Why? We want to question ourselves why we, the people of Ghana, why are we so jealous that somebody who wants to bring development to the people of Ghana, just one day a wicked person will just destroy everything.
According to an eyewitness, Nenyo Joseph, who also doubles as senior forest resource guard, the fire started from the hilltop down into the forest. He suspects foul play and called for investigation.
That is somebody who intentionally did it. Because the way we've constructed fire belt around the whole district, we constructed fire right the whole of this forest reserve. But we don't know what happened. So it's somebody who intentionally went in and claimed the place. That we have to do the investigation to see whether we can get the person.
Statistics from the Upper West Office of the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, revealed a little over 4,600 bags of maize and soybean have been destroyed in 2019 as a result of bushfires, an indication that disaster management committees inaugurated throughout the region by the NADMO needs to work above themselves to prevent further bushfires from destroying the already fragile vegetative cover of the region. Reporting for Joy News, Rafiq Salam, Laura.
Country Director of International Justice Mission Ghana, Will Lathrop, says the church has a big role to play in the elimination of child trafficking on Lake Volta, where children as young as 5 are sold into slavery and forced to do hazardous work. In an interview with Joy News at the 2020 IGM Justice Concert, he lauded the role of state agencies in the fight and said Ghana is making encouraging progress. Now, Joy News' Maxwell Agugba was at the concert and has come through with this report.
On that day, we did not go with them. One of the children was screaming. He had entered the lake to remove the nets. The man he went with left him. He drowned.
A 10-year-old boy rescued from slavery on Lake Volta, narrating to me his heart-breaking experience sometime last year. But there is an army of Christians rising and determined to fight child trafficking on Lake Volta. 5-year-old Ayeyi is one of them.
To pray for my brothers and sisters enslaved on the Volta Lake. Lord, your word knows that children are gifts from you, and no one should hinder them from coming to you. In your name, we pray that you bring freedom and justice to my brothers and sisters on the Volta Lake. In Jesus' name, amen.
Many young people have their aspirations chained to canoes and boats on Lake Volta as their education is truncated just to serve their masters. Gospel musician and member of IGM Eugene Zuta led the congregation to sing "Break Every Chain." The beats, boxing and singing by this a cappella group wowed the crowd and got the audience shouting and clapping. International Justice Mission Ghana Director of Advocacy Leonard Akon says the time to act is now.
Thousands of children still in slavery. Thousands of children who are someone's sister or brother, daughter or son. God has a plan to bring an end to this injustice. because every life matters. And his plan is us. You see the right here in this chapel. You are his plan to end child slavery on the Volta Lake. As you and I work together to advocate for these children, little by little we are reigniting their lives and pushing back darkness. We are allowing each of these children the platform they need to light up the room, to light up the world.
Every single day, though they try to hurt me.
Country Director of the International Justice Mission, Will Latrop, says there's an encouraging progress in the fight against child trafficking.
You know, probably at IJM we get a very front seat look at that, and we have seen encouraging progress every year. It's getting better every year. 2020 is going to be even better. There's still the issue of we need to see the government allocate more of its own funds. The funds are a little bit low right now, but the people working in that industry, and the police, the Ministry of Gender, the prosecutors, the state's attorneys, we've seen a lot of desire and will to actually help these children and do something. And in Ghana, the church has a tremendous amount of power. It's diverse. It's a big and diverse church, but the church has a lot of power in terms of persuading the industries not to do things.
Senior pastor of the Agape Helps New Testament Church, Reverend Richard C. Whitcomb, says the church has a role to play in eliminating child trafficking.
I believe this is the call of God upon the Church of Jesus Christ today. We need to rise up as a church and help to rescue these children and care for them so that they can be restored. These are precious children that God created. They each have an identity, they each have a destiny, and we, the church, have been called by God to bring them out and bring them up for the glory of God.
The audience left the 2020 IJM Justice Concert more than determined to fight child trafficking, with the hope that this prayer by actress Martha Ankuma will spur them on.
Jesus, we pray for breakthrough. Jesus, we pray for open doors. We pray for open heavens. We pray for opportunities. We pray for knowledge. We pray for wisdom. Father, Lord, we pray for love. We pray for joy. We pray for peace, Lord Jesus.
And that'll be it for the bulletin. I'm Israel. Thank you very much for watching.